These homeowners refused to leave and stood their ground against aggressive construction companies. Today's video is on the top 5 stubborn homeowners. Number 5. This house is the product of a stubborn homeowner that refused to move. In the 1950s, a major developer came into the neighborhood with dreams of redeveloping the neighborhood and fixing it up. This strange house was once part of 6 other matching row homes. The area was quite poor and was considered a slum, so most people were happy to sell their homes and turn in a nice profit. The row of homes were taken down one by one, but the person who owned this home was upset by the proposed development, and he dug in his heels. No matter what the developer did or offered him, the stubborn homeowner refused to sell. So the developer left the 100-year-old home where it was and simply built around it. The result is a very odd-looking half house that still stands today. The half house is located on St. Patrick's Street in Toronto, Ontario. And oddly enough, the house has an address that actually reads 54 and a half. Some people marvel at the strange house that literally looks like it was sliced half down the middle. Others simply laugh at the oddness of this half home. Number 4. This is a nice little home that clearly stands out from its towering counterparts. An architect called Austin Springs was the owner of this quaint little house in Washington, D.C. He was pretty proud of his purchase, so when developers came in with the intentions of turning his block into a series of office buildings, Springs refused to sell. Frustrated by Springs, the developer upped the stakes by offering him a staggering $3 million. But it wasn't about the money, according to Springs. It was about the principle. He liked his home and he didn't want to move. Seeing no other option, the developers continued with their plans and built the office buildings around the small home. In 2011, however, Springs had a change of heart and sold the property to a partnership DC-based development company. The price tag had dropped though by that time, and Springs let his house go for $800,000. The small home eventually became a restaurant and remained surrounded by the taller buildings in 2016. At that time, the developers who bought the property sold it for $4 million. It seems like the original owner sort of got messed over. That's too bad. Number 3. The Figo House is located in Portland, Oregon, near the Portland State University. The 1894 Queen Anne-style home was purchased by Ranger Acker in 2005. Acker purchased the home to convert it into a small office for his privately owned legal practice. He was very fond of architecture and he loved the character of all the Queen Anne homes in the neighborhood. He lovingly named the home the Figo Home after his beloved dog. But in 2006, only a year after he had purchased the house, Portland's mass transit authority, TriMet, tried to acquire the property. TriMet had already bought the surrounding Victorian homes and were in the process of demolishing them when they offered to buy Acker's home. But Acker was angry that they were tearing up the neighborhood, so he adamantly refused to sell. TriMet tried another tactic at that point, threatening to take the house under something called eminent domain. Eminent domain allows for public entities to buy private properties even when the seller won't sell. TriMet wanted the house because the entire area was going to be turned into high-rise student housing for the University of Portland. The proposed development would be a 16-story college residence that would cost $90 million. Acker's little office was right in the way, but despite their threats, Acker would have none of this. And being a commercial lawyer, he fought the city and won. TriMet was forced to cancel their plan to acquire the property through eminent domain. The residence hall was still built, however, but it was just built around the house. The result is a very strange Victorian house smack dab in the middle of the high-rise student building. Number 2. This home is literally surrounded by a highway, and although people joke the house has 360-degree views of roadway, the owner of this house probably didn't think it was so funny. This home is located in Guangzhou, South China, and it is the last of several homes that were sold and torn down to complete this highway. There are actually 3 Chinese homeowners in this building, and when developers marched in and demanded that they sell, they all refused. City planners were upset by their refusal to sell, as they needed the houses gone so they could connect the city road network to a tunnel under the Pearl River. But the stubborn homeowners didn't care. They weren't going anywhere. They remained in their homes while construction started all around them. Frustrated, the city was forced to alter their plans and build the road around the house. This is not the only house like this in China though. It is an example of what the Chinese call nail houses. Nail houses are seen throughout China in strange places. Sometimes a nail house has a road built around it, like this one. Or sometimes a nail house is simply a small house left standing in the center of luxury homes. In any case, nail houses are the result of stubborn homeowners who refuse to sell. City planners are left with no choice but to alter their plans and build around these nail houses. The term nail home was coined by developers and refers to nails that are stuck in wood and cannot be pounded down with a hammer. But anyways, let's move on to number 1. This tiny home belonged to Edith Macefield, who became quite famous when her holdout antics received national attention. The home sits in the Ballard neighborhood in Seattle. Macefield was an elderly woman who had lived in the home for a very long time. So when developers came and wanted to build a 5-story commercial building, Macefield refused to sell. In 2006, Macefield made headlines when she refused a very generous offer for her home. She was reportedly offered $1 million for the tiny house, but she didn't even entertain the offer and flat out refused. Her story started to circulate in the media, and Macefield was met with an outpouring of support. People admired her holdout tactics, and she even became somewhat of a legend in the town. The tiny house was a 108-year-old farm home, and she told developers time and time again that she wouldn't leave her beloved home. So the developers ended up building a 5-story commercial space around her tiny house. Macefield lived the rest of her life in her home, surrounded by the newly built taller building. She sadly passed away in 2008, but the holdout hero lives on. When she passed away, Macefield willed the house to the construction superintendent of the new building, Barry Martin. Martin had been kind to Macefield throughout the development, so she actually left him her house to show her gratitude. That's pretty amazing. In the years that followed, a famous tattoo artist, Curtis James, designed a new tattoo based on her house. The tattoo is meant to symbolize holding onto things that are important to you, and by June 2015, more than 30 people had the Macefield house tattooed onto their bodies to honor Macefield and her amazing story. Furthermore, in 2009, publicists from Disney attached balloons to the Macefield house to promote their upcoming film, Up, that was based on her story. The movie Up is about a widower who faces the same problems that Macefield did: pressure from looming developers to sell something that you don't want to sell. The picture of the Macefield house with the colorful balloons on it became an emblem of sorts for property owners all over the country who believe in a homeowner's right to hold out. And before we go, we have a couple honorable mentions that didn't make the list. Wu Ping probably never imagined that this would ever happen to her home when she refused to sell. Wu Ping is somewhat of a Chinese celebrity for her holdout tactics. In 2004, developers came in and tried to buy up all the land in her neighborhood. They wanted to build a shopping mall, but none of the families in the area, 300 in total, wanted to sell. They all refused at first. However, slowly, one by one, they began to sell, until eventually Wu Ping was the last one left. But still, she would not sell, even after everyone else did. So the developers began construction around her home, forcing her to live in this surreal situation, with her home perched on top of a mound of dirt. Seeing that it was an absurd situation, Wu Ping finally relented in 2007. She was offered both a hefty sum for her home and a brand new apartment that she gladly accepted in the end. And lastly, the churchgoers of this Roman Catholic church in downtown San Antonio dug in their heels when the Josk department store offered to buy their church from them. Josks wanted to develop a series of small retail shops that eventually became the shops at River Center. But the churchgoers were very attached to their place of worship, and they unanimously agreed not to sell. Josks had no other choice but to build around their lovely little church, and today the church is jokingly referred to as St. Josks. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to check out some of my previous uploads, and remember to subscribe for more.